Hello and welcome. Today we're going to be looking at the new electromagnetic 406, a Triforce beam of destruction, and we're just going to be comparing it to the previous or the old 406 cruiser cannon because it's going to be interesting to observe if the functionality has changed at all between the two, or see if there is some more advantages of having the old 406 versus the current, just due to perhaps some of the coding. So the way I've set this up, which is going to be a bit harder to tell right now, is that the cruiser cannons have a different formation or a different layout. They are a lot lower and they have, in theory, a lot less room between each other, whereas the Triforce cruiser cannon, that has been perched up a bit higher. I've also added some elevation to a few of the different towers just to see if they perform better, if they have a bit more of a clearance between the different cruiser cannons. As you can see here, these are very tightly pinched together. This one has a little bit more room. And if we have a look over to the other 406, at least in this configuration, they're very nicely, pretty much you can't get any closer to that when you stack them in this kind of formation. Now we can see here that because of this map and the layout of the two different mountains on the flank, the left side is by far a little bit higher, so the left side is never going to be able to get the same reach as the right side. But we'll just stop here so we can watch the you might not have seen this, and we would hope that these guys would be able to target the Cyrus, but it seems to be some issues here. Okay, now they're trying to, oh yeah, it got it, clipped it. But it had to get in kind of close, got some uranium dropping, but isn't that pretty cool? We can get Cyrus, oof, geez, he's coming in, landing, boom, we should get a nice explosion. Awesome to see that this is now a part of the infinite mode. So going back to what I was saying, so the left flank here, this mountain is a bit higher, which cruiser cannon doesn't seem to be able to target too well, at least the guys on the top here. It might be because it's under 300 meters, because I believe, or 500 meters, I think it is. 300, yeah, so 300 in-game meters, so that is probably too close. They are trying to target, but they don't seem to rotate in that direction, which is a little bit unfortunate because it kind of makes this side a bit useless. So perhaps it would be better to actually have this side much higher and this side lower, because it doesn't seem to add any value having your cruiser cannons quite high on this side. And what's really disappointing is that, which we'll test out a bit more, because perhaps if there is a bit more of a gap between these two, this last cruiser cannon will actually perform and shoot better, because currently at the moment it's not shooting at all, doesn't seem to really be able to move. But again, it could be because of this particular layout. It does a base damage of 50,000 per round is my understanding, which is huge. So correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that is per round. Same goes for the cruiser cannon. It will be shooting in a 3-round burst, doing 30,000 each round. Again, that is my understanding. I could be wrong there, but just correct me in the comments if that's not the case. But what this means now is, with the addition, which is only just come in within the latest patch, is now we can change the mode between a 3-shot mode or a single shot mode, make the electromagnetic cruiser cannon highly efficient and devastating. Now we can conserve a lot more rounds and actually have this as a much more viable option and get to use it a lot more, because it's going to be much more efficient just shooting one round and doing a ton of damage. So this is going to be interesting how that's going to impact the meta, but it's not going to be useful if we can't get them to actually function and rotate in a more reliable way. And you can see here they can clip into these Hellfires, which is great, but unfortunately it doesn't seem to want to rotate at all, getting any higher. Now I'm not sure, because if I try click on this, whenever I try to do the manual targeting, we just go, see here and try to get it to target over there, it should easily be able to hit that target, but it does not seem to work. So something in this layout is preventing it from moving, but I'm a bit unsure why, because the clipping is pretty much all the same, whereas this one can move fine. This one doesn't seem to be able to move much. Then compared to the old 406, they seem to perform a lot better in how much they can rotate. But what we're going to do is we're going to switch this over now. We're going to switch the electromagnetic cruiser cannon onto this side and have the 406s on this side. See if we can get a bit of better understanding of the performance. Because at the moment, the electromagnetic cruiser cannon is a little bit underwhelming on this particular side. Cool. So we're just switching it over now. We have the Triforce. It's not called Triforce anymore. It's just the electromagnetic cruiser cannon. They probably just changed the name, which is fine. Either way is good, but the Triforce was a pretty damn cool name. Now we can slip these on here, and now we will put the cruiser cannon on. What we are going to do as well is we're going to test if we remove some of these crates to lower this second cruiser cannon below, because if that gives more mobility and accessibility for this cruiser cannon, then we know what's going on with some of these. A lot more room. that's a much bigger gap between the two. So hopefully that will let it perform better. We could even try dropping this one as well, and then we could just let this one sit much closer and then try drop this one as well. Then we have to drop this one at the front. Now the only issue we may have with this particular layout is that when this 406 starts to rotate to the left or right, depending which way you're facing, it can then push ammo off this conveyor belt. So yeah, it's going to do that now. So what we might do is we might actually revert that change. Okay, and let's hope that will give a little bit more clearance. Now the good thing is that the electromagnetic cruiser cannon has a much more tidy and neat charge module or rear end, where it is much more slim and actually works out to be much better on this side. So we might even just get rid of this cruiser cannon and throw this one over here. You can see the dramatic difference of how it's actually formed. It gives so much more space behind. So really good. Love to see that because it works perfect in this layout. Okay, let's give this a test. One thing that's awesome is that in the new update that's coming is fuel can now be thrown into the material converter, power converter, and the dismantler. And if you put 50 fuel cans in, you'll get 2,000 material. I'll just quickly show you. So in the power converter, if we throw in fuel, it gives us 250. Material converter, 2,000. Okay, so now we're in, and this is just wave one. So we'll see how it goes, but just make sure that they're all on. The other cool thing is now if you double click on the cruiser cannon, just the old one, and you go into your config, you can actually select between the two groups, which is nice. Doesn't seem to happen when you click on the electromagnetic cruiser. Double click on that, it will only give you access just to the electromagnetic cruiser cannon, but it's pretty cool that we can shift between the two. So we can notice straight away that this 406 is able to rotate and actually fire across. So why couldn't the electromagnetic cruiser do that? Do they have a different minimum range? This guy hasn't even been set to the minimum range. So I don't understand why there is such a difference. And it has even less mid-range. So it is quite curious to see how these sort of behave a bit differently to each other right now. The only difference is we did provide a bit more of a gap. Okay, so maybe that's the reason why it's performing so much better, is that it actually has and can reach across, is because we've lowered this cruiser cannon. So it might be the case that you need at least a 2 material storage gap between each of these to actually make them most effective, because when they're packed in tight like this, that is probably the reason they're not performing so well. Yeah, so now this guy is trying to target, can't seem to turn and reach. It is pretty cool though how this can now shoot across, but it's a bit disappointing that none of these guys are shooting across. It has a lower min range, and these guys have 500 minimum range, and they could actually fire across when they were sitting right here. So it does seem like it's still a bit buggy and we'll probably need some work, but we'll do some more testing because we'll try stagger these a little bit differently. We'll try to also remove perhaps the hellfires to see if that helps at all. See if we can get them working in any kind of capacity where they function similar to the 406, because you would kind of expect it to perform better with shorter range, min-range, but at the moment it seems to be performing worse. Okay, so we can see here that the 406s are turning to hit this, and these electromagnetic did not actually move at all. What's really neat though is that the front 2 electromagnetic cruisers seem to have the best elevation and perform the best just from where they are situated in terms of the height of the base, which is probably because they have no restrictions on how low their turrets can drop. So it does look like a lot of the problem with these electromagnetic cruisers is that they do need a lot more spacing, particularly when firing forward, but I will have to sort of figure out if that's actually the case. Yeah, so we're going to jump out now and we're going to try to get a bit more spacing between all the different towers, turrets, and see if that is going to work any better. Okay, and we're back, and now we can see they are working so much better. Now we did remove the hellfires, so I'll put them back in next test to see if that made any difference, but I highly doubt it. This is just going to be a spacing issue, which makes a lot of sense. Like I should have thought about that a bit sooner, but you can see that it can point down. So the best configuration is not going to look the nicest. So we're going to have to play around with this and sort of structure this. Perhaps having less of the 406 is actually going to be by far the best kind of circumstance, or from a functionality and lethality point of view, is perhaps having them staggered and more of a gap, and having less is going to be a much more potent mix. Because the objective here is to basically be able to run almost a shell base, or just within the first or as many rounds as possible, just do shell production and see if we can change the meta up and just have more focus on using the 406s over the good classic Hellfires, because it'd be nice to mix it up like that. Plus, these things just look so cool. Now, with the addition of being able to actually get them to fire single shots, it's going to be almost the better option, perhaps even more cost effective in terms of material. So it's going to be some fun playing around with this. But look at this guy. He's completely rotated across just. So it's a bit of a pain. Now, I wonder, he couldn't do that before because there was another tower there. So this might not be the best looking structure of the way we're going to have to do this, but it's definitely going to be the most functional, and that's what we're after. I'm not too worried about the looks. Someone else can worry about that, but for me, I want the best use of these 406 electromatics. So the last one to try get working is this guy here, and again, it's probably just going to be a clearance issue because he's so far up. He needs much more clearance to be able to actually clear the base and shoot down. The other test we really should perform is when we actually get to the second stage and take this base, because that's when these guys should all come in to really shine. So we might do that as well. So we'll just build these bases out if we can. Yeah, we got enough. We got some shell makers coming through, so we'll try set up a bit of a base here and see if we can get these 406s working quite nice. Okay, so they're landing much further, so you'd expect these guys to be able to hit them from a much further distance. Yeah, geez, isn't that better? So in this kind of base, trying to hold the second one is probably going to be by far the most efficient. So cool. You gotta love these cannons. Look at these guys. So it's gonna this guy's gonna retarget, finally moving. So this is what the kind of clearance we're after. This kind of scenario where it actually is going to be effective, and it can even hit the ones on the mountain. That is nuts. This is going to be one crazy deadly build if you can hold this second base, and you could almost go just completely shells for the first part, because these guys are going to crush. They can just start hitting the guys on the mountain here. Oh, hold on. We've got some of them not using the right range. So if we all pump them up now to a max range, that should get them sorted. Oh, holy moly. Isn't that awesome? They just one-shot everything. So they should be able to hit that surely, or is that the trees blocking them? I wonder if the trees get in the way. It doesn't look like it because this guy's targeting through there. Nah, trees don't get in the way. Damn. Oh man, the one shot of these electromatic is just insane. Let's just go into display mode. They're targeting so much better. Hold on, this guy doesn't look like he's on. Oh no, he's just out of ammo. The shell makers, yeah, shell makers are taking a little while to ramp up. Probably an easy question I could have answered, but good to see this in practice. I know a couple people have mentioned that they've had a lot of trouble with their 406s not targeting and working properly, and that's just because of how we've laid them out. If they're too close, it's not going to work. And I mean, if we go up here, right, and look at where this guy can fire, and it's, you know, he's not going to be able to really fire down. Maybe, you know, around here, probably his best bet, but again, these extend all the way out. So by the time he's here and looking down, it's probably not going to work. Look at them. They're targeting onto, here we go. They're going to, yeah, so this time they're targeting onto the aircraft, only firing one shot each. That's saving so much ammo. Look at this guy. He's finally turning all the way around. Not sure what he's trying to target, but this is looking much better. This is going to completely change the meta, I reckon. These electromagnetic cruiser cannons are just the best. They're going to make Hellfires obsolete almost, because this is so cool. These things so much better now, and they work tons. So it is all about having clearance. You do need a lot of clearance between the separate towers, so when you have them like this, it's going to work best with a bit more. But man, what beasts. So I'm going to end up sticking all of these just full of the electromagnetic cruiser cannon, and it is going to absolutely annihilate. This is crazy. This is going to be the new meta. Some version of this. Oh, doesn't this look way too cool? I love these new cannons. We can definitely tell that the electromagnetic cruiser is far superior and is actually going to be a game-changing element now. Being able to fire one shell at a time and having such huge range and damage, it's going to be an absolute beast to contend with, and it's going to be interesting to see how some of these bases progress for infinite mode. In particular, building particular bases just to support this kind of like holding two Promethean cores. Holding three, I reckon you probably need an actual crew with you to hold that and work it all out, but you could probably do this quite easily just holding two with some interesting and intuitive base designs. But anyway, we'll leave it at that. If you got anything out of this, consider liking and subscribing. Really goes a long way. Cheers.